It's like a heartbeat, the sound of a basket maker's axe thumping away on a log. It's an old sound, coming to us from way back over the generations. It's always speaking to us as it carries its way echoing over woods and fields. It calls out to us saying, "Remember those who have come before you, grandparents, elders, ancestors. Remember their struggles and the goodness of their ways. Remember the earth, our provider, in whom we trust and honor. From her, all sustenance flows. Remember your relations. A tightly woven family is strong. You are part of something greater than yourself. Remember the beauty of life which you are surrounded by. Reflect its goodness and all that you create. Remember, you are Anishinaabe. You are resilient." Our people, the Anishinaabe, are indigenous to the Great Lakes region. We are three tribes all related, the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and Potawatomi. Though many of us live in small communities and reservations scattered across our traditional homeland, there is much we share in common. Our language, our history, our traditional values, customs, and our art forms are all part of the fabric that make us Anishinaabe. Our basketry is an important part of that fabric. Like many of our traditions, it has over the years provided for our physical and emotional needs in times of great adversity, times when we struggle to maintain our identity, struggle to keep our spirit, and struggle just to survive. Times when we lost so much. It was these times in which the tradition grew strong. This is a story about our black ash basketry. It's a story about our people, a community of Anishinaabe in Southwest Michigan, and an extended family in that community. There's also a story about how we are faced with losing our basketry forever, and what that may mean. It began someplace near Wapo Island, at the mouth of the St. Clair River. The Buketjwanong First Nation is home to around 2,000 Anishinaabe, and was home to thousands upon thousands of ash trees. That is, until the emerald ash borer was accidentally introduced in the 1990s.
This site here is one of the very first heavy infestations we found on the island. And this was back in our initial surveys. And if you look on the tree, you can see all the galleries. The bark is completely gone off the tree. This tree is 100% dead, and it's been for a number of years. I guess it's kind of sad to see that it's a fairly young tree yet. And this tree probably had another good 60, 70 years of life in it. It was ended short by emerald ash borer. Since 2003, that all of the ash trees in this area are 100% dead. As we first found ash borer out here, it was only found on the southern extremities of the First Nation. And as time passed, we did eventually find it in the northern areas of the community, and as well as we finally found it on the eastern portion. And that occurred in roughly 3 or 4 years. So it does move along quite well, unfortunately. And we end up with a lot of skeletons in the end.
This invasive beetle, native to Asia, is gradually spreading and threatens to destroy 7.5 billion ash trees nationwide. For most people Losing trees along their streets, yards, and parks may be upsetting. For Anishinaabe, the loss of ash trees means the loss of our ability to make baskets. It is more than a loss of income. It is a loss of tradition which has served our communities in so many ways over the years.
Mashkoging, in the place of the source of life on earth.
Traveling west across the state in terms of the black ash tree is like going back in time. Here in a lush swamp not far from Bradley Indian Community, the pigeon family selects black ash for their baskets. You wouldn't know of the impending change. Like all Anishinaabe basket makers, Steve Pigeon, his wife Kit, and their children follow traditional methods used by generations before them.
We're getting into the woods where the black ash trees are starting out here in the swampy part in the lowlands. Ed's leaning against an ash, and we have a lot of ashes growing here. A good way to tell is by looking at the leaves up there, and they have opposing leaves, like I think there's 8 on each side and 1 on the end. So we're gonna go check them with a little hatchet and take a notch out of each one. And here's one that doesn't appear to be tapped. Now see, I checked to see if the little strings will come loose here that are the fibers of the wood, and if they want to stick together good, and I see that they're sticking together good, and I like the fibers that I can see in here. So this is a good sign that it's good wood. And I want to check the width of the growth ring, so I have to make another little chip, because so far everything looks good. Now I look at the growth rings in here, and they're certainly plenty wide enough that we want. They're about nickel-sized growth rings. And it looks like a flexible tree, and it's been growing in the water all its life. So this should be a good tree. We'll be able to get a lot of logs out of here and a lot of wood out of this one tree.
They all think we came over on a land bridge between 12,000 years ago in the Peace River Valley, but there are basket things that have been found in certain regions around the Great Lakes and over to Pennsylvania that are 20,000 years old. So baskets have been around an extremely long period of time.
Now we can get quite a few logs out of this one. We want them to be about 7 foot long. So 2, 4.
Got it.
So after we get the tree down, we remove a lot of the bark. We'll come back and get the rest of this bark too. We got this cut all the way around the circle here, and Matt will cut a line in it, and we use this bark for making bark baskets. We fold the bark up and put handles on them, homemade wooden handles or handles made out of cordage.
There we go. And there's the inside of it, and there's the outside. It's pretty flexible, so you at least flat.
You guys start carrying this log.
Excellent. Yeah.
Now, is this a tree or what? Beautiful tree. Beautiful tree. He's never been tapped. I could take 2 trees down today and we could just make it a hauling party day. Oh my goodness, that's pretty white wood. Yeah, here, let's look at that. These are 2 growth rings and they're just nice and wide like a nickel. What do you think?
Yeah.
Pretty nice, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd enjoy living at our house for the rest of his life, or on somebody's shelf as a basket.
Minwabajit toying a kip, envisioning the uses of the land in a good way.
In the old days, the people looked to the forest around them for everything they needed. From a cradle board that held an infant, to the birch bark wrappings used to protect the dead. Our lives were constantly surrounded by the gift of the trees. Homes, medicine, food, tools, and transportation all came from the woods. In this way, Anishinaabeg have always held a special relationship with the plants and trees. It is an understanding of kindred between harvester and harvested, giver and recipient. There has always been a sense of goodness and self-worth in coming to the woods for the things one needs. In the early 1800s, after people were relocated to reservation and land allotments, there was less legal access to forest resources. Items that were once handmade have been replaced by store-bought counterparts. Yet, over the years, many Anishinaabeg continue to harvest wild foods, medicine, and materials for crafts, even if it was deemed illegal by the authorities. The land would continue to provide, even if in small ways, and the relationship would continue.
When you go out to get an ash tree, you speak to that tree to ensure that you're doing the right thing and the tree is doing the right thing, and the tree, being alive, knows that it's going to give up its time on earth to help make a living, to care for a family.
Minadendamang nagudwaana gizwin ejid nawending. All our relations acting as one is held in high esteem.
We're gonna pull these up with a cable. We do kind of get a little technological sometimes. But hey, what would the Indians do if they had a 4-wheel drive and a bunch of cable? They'd probably use it.
And what did they do if they didn't?
Yeah, there you go. They carry it up the hill just like these guys did.
It's one of the bad things about this swamp being so nice at the bottom of a hill, so we end up having to walk it up the hill.
My dad flipped out when he saw his first chainsaw. It was in the Army, and they were making overlapping fire, clearing out the jungle in front of him, and he saw him using the chainsaw, and he thought, what is that? You know, like, they're using machines to cut down trees.
Amongst the Anishinaabeg, traditional knowledge is passed from one generation to the next. Traditions weave together the old and the young, and connect generations past and present in a continuous loop. Like many Anishinaabeg, the Pigeon family came to basket making by way of their ancestors, the most recognized being Steve's father, Ed. Basketry has always been a collective activity for Anishinaabe family, and continues to be a unifying force for the Pigeons, connecting parents, children, and in-laws.
I come out mostly to carry trees and pound the log, so that's my participation in the whole basket process. But if that doesn't get done, then nobody has any material to do anything else with, so it's a small sacrifice, but what can you do, you know?
Yeah, as one of the guys that carries it out, I'd like to say that this is the most important part, but All the rest of it's pretty minuscule, but no, not really.
This is where I like to be. I feel about 17 years younger when I come out in the woods. I forget I'm slow and old. But it reminds me of being young every time I get out here and hear the birds and feel the heat. It's just beautiful, it's nice.
You just feel good when you're out in the woods. I mean, everything's natural, it's the way it should be. And that's where our whole process of the basket starts. And I think maybe that might be one of the harder things to learn, is to be able to pick a tree, find it, know what's a good tree and what's a bad tree. So a lot of our time is spent out in the woods. And that might be part of the draw, because we like to be in the woods.
Every day.
Mission accomplished.
My mom and dad both had parents that were both basket makers, so he started when he was about 4 years old, and he lived over by the Bradley settlement, and he would make little baskets when he was little. But then he would take them and put them in his wagon and walk down to the bustling part of Bradley and sell them to people who were going by on the roadway, or he'd peddle them house to house, but he'd sell them for 3 cents and a nickel, or probably that's about all he would get for them. So he had spending money when he was little anyway. Everybody has a good time just going to the woods. Doing the same thing, working towards a common goal makes the family tight. That's the way it was when I grew up, and I think it's working pretty good for me with my kids, and it's just a nice way to get to know everybody good, especially in your family.
Anoki tamang genadama goying we bemadazing. We work for the things that help us to live.
By the middle of the 19th century, most Anishinaabe were forced to provide for their families by other means than the traditional seasonal rounds of hunting, trapping, and gathering. For many of our ancestors, that meant seeking employment in the form of jobs. Men went off to work at logging camps and as farmhands. Women picked fruit and served as housekeepers, cooks, and other odd jobs. For the most part, the positions paid little money and forced family members to leave reservations, breaking apart our traditional family systems and communities. Basket making provided a unique economic niche. Basket makers could still work together as a family and remain in their communities. They were more independent of an unequal system of employment and could continue to get what they needed from the land while applying traditional skills to generate income.
There's really baskets you can put into 2 areas that still exist now. Those that are made for utilitarian purposes, which at one time was everything, generally speaking, and those that are made for sale to make money. And as time goes forward, it gets more into baskets for making money rather than baskets for use. There's a college professor came over to my dad's house there, and he says, "Louis, do you make baskets?" He says, "No." He says, "Well, how come?" He says, "I'm not broke enough yet." And there's a lot of truth to that, because Dad would talk about, see, we lived where we grew up about 3 miles away from where Sam Pigeon lived. And it was quiet then. And you could tell when Sam Pigeon needed sugar, flour, or salt, because you'd hear the basket pounding going on, and it would carry on over a distance. So really making ends meet required you to make baskets.
She just took me and raised me on making baskets. And my earliest memories are us piling up all of her baskets that she had made, like in a week, and then going in the car up and down the roads over to Holland and over toward Kalamazoo, and then over, you know, she made all of her rounds all the time to sell baskets to the farmers, market baskets and big round baskets, egg baskets, sewing baskets to the ladies. And then as I grew older, she would make baskets for the office ladies, like at the courthouses in Hastings and Allegan and Kalamazoo. And I remember always having really a lot of fun going to those places. This would have to have been before I went to school. So that was the only way she made money to raise me, was through her work with baskets.
Jitawiyangit matig, we kokabanaganik king, getting the wood ready for basket making.
And I go just down to the core wood, the brown. Point the knife at the center. And then, just so I know where I'm going to start at, I'll take off a little bit of that bark. And then I'll bring in some muscle people.
He's peeling off the bark, so when you're pounding it with the axe, it doesn't fly off and hit someone. When he pounds, he's going to make sure that he hits the axe flat on the tree, because if you hit it sideways, it cuts down into the wood.
One of the oldest remembrances I have is probably waking up some mornings and early in the morning, you could hear that telltale thump on the log, and we hear it over here. And my mom would say, you know, oh, must be Grandpa Birch is making today. Making means he's pounding his back log, and we'd hear that, you know, and all of a sudden, in the distance, we could hear somebody over in Gracie's area. She'd be hitting a log too over there, and we'd dunk, dunk, and they were just unison, you know, dunk, 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 dunk. You know, they were kind of telegraphing. You know, Henry is making baskets, and over there, Gracie is making baskets too, and all of a sudden, you hear another funk start up over here at Selkirk Sprague's house, and they're dunk dunk dunk. You can hear that telltale Indian telegraph, you know, dunk dunk dunk.
Just take a knife and we're gonna go in between each one of the growth rings to get them all started. If we get them all separated at the beginning, then they'll stay separated as we work our way down the log. Our first strip is always the hardest to get off, but once we get this, 2, 3, and all the way up to maybe 10 or 12 strips we'll get off of this tree.
My mom would sing to the tree in between pounding the log, because as if just to soothe the tree or to make the tree feel better. Sometimes it would be hymns, sometimes it would be Frank Sinatra.
A lot of times you can feel the moisture shooting out of the wood when you hit it every time with the axe.
As I was growing up, about the competition between the men, who was going to be the first one on the job, pounding black ash weescock in the morning. And so that's what was heard around the community. The style and the strength that it was pounded had to be even, and that was a skill that the men talked about amongst themselves.
looks like really nice flexible wood. Very good. We got 13 years growth rings here. They're all about a little less than 2 inches wide. They're fairly straight. They just follow their own grain and their own fiber down the tree. So the next thing we're going to do is set them down and take them one at a time, and I'm going to trim up the sides of them where they're real rough. It's a little safety precaution for when we split the wood, and it just kind of makes the splitting easier by having a flat edge on it on both sides of the wood.
I slide my splint up through the side of my machine here, and then I'm going to score the top of it with my knife. And I bring it down, and I'm going to bend it back and forth both ways. And then I just watch and pull. And then make 2 pieces out of one. And one side comes out naturally smooth, and the other side is rough, so we'll shave the other side with a knife. We learned all of this from my father-in-law, Ed Pigeon, and he was a Heritage Award winner in 89, was it, or 88? 88. And then after he won his award, they allowed him to apprentice someone, and he picked me to be his apprentice. So I had to learn to go out in the woods and the swamp and learn all aspects of whittling. And our kids were really little then. In 2005, I had the chance to apprentice Angeline, so it was kind of nice. It went full circle. It's kind of the glue that keeps us together as a family. It's something we all enjoy doing. Oh, these are some nice ribbons, girls.
My grandmother, who raised me, made all sorts of baskets, laundry baskets, clothes hampers, market baskets, the big baskets. And her sister, Eva, made the fancy baskets, the fine sewing baskets, and the strawberry baskets, and the picnic baskets. So they all had a style, and the men were necessary for the handles, the kundisan and skapkognan, and that. They all worked together. That's what was needed. And then when it was that time of the month when money was needed and food was needed, then my grandmother would get her shkupichigan, her sheet or tablecloth, and put the baskets one into the other, and get as many as she could in her shkupichigan, in her bundle, put them on her back and go to the States and sell them house to house in Michigan, and she'd come back with groceries, and we'd have a good time.
Wapandamang Wajiganajwang, how the inner beauty will be brought to light.
Well, once we get the wood off the tree, we start trimming up, and what Angie's doing right now is trimming the sides, and then when she gets all the sides trimmed, because they're kind of rough, and then we'll cut the bottoms out of them. So she's straightening up the side. Yeah, we go by eye.
Your elbow to your wrist. I know right here is 8 inches from my pinky to my thumb, so if I really want to measure, there's my own built-in measuring stick.
The first time I taught my girls to make a strawberry basket was almost the last time I made one, because they both surpassed me. You know, I like theirs better than mine, and I thought, well, good, she's a strawberry basket maker, you know, so I don't make me very many strawberry baskets. And I don't like to fill orders either. I like to make what I want to make. It turns into work if someone wants something, a specific color or a specific design. I like to just make what moves me, I guess. Angie's going to put together a 12-piece bottom, and she is making a square one. Stephanie's making a round bottom. How many pieces is it, Steph? 8. So how she starts is she lays down her first 4 pieces, and after she put the first 4 down, now she's going and placing one down in between each little open area she has, kind of like dividing a pie shape.
In the spirit of the tree is still here. It hasn't really died. It's, as long as this isn't decaying in the ground or burned up, it still has its spirit. And some of her secrets too that she used to do was she always had animals like kittens and cats and dogs, and sometimes she would take their piece of their each individual hair or fur and put it in her splints in between here, so that here's one now, so that a piece of that animal would have notoriety or longevity, or his little spirit would be added to her baskets.
When I first started weaving, we would go over to Steve's mom's and dad's house, and they 10 kids in his family, so there was a lot of them. We was always watching the ball games, and Dad would get the wood out and he'd be working on it, and he'd let us all try and practice, and all of the kids were into football, and I didn't really care for football that much, and I always had to wait for my turn. But once the game started again, then everyone abandoned the black ash, and then I'd have a long time that I could just play with it myself, and that was when I had my first success of splitting the wood. Kind of got me a little bit hooked then.
I always plan my baskets. I know what I'm gonna make. I usually have everything cut out and all my pieces ready to go on it. I like the more traditional designs, things that Steve's dad taught me, and I usually pick that kind of basket to make. That's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I like. My girls go out there a little bit more and make things that are more off the wall, more contemporary than what I do. But just making the basket, I think in my head what I'm gonna make, and then I just sit down and it just happens. You know, you just kind of get lost in it, and then it's done.
The next thing we're going to do is split this log up to make some handles and some rims for these little baskets here.
She would make like $5 for a market basket, a big basket, market basket size. That I remember that when she was selling those for $5 with a carved rims and handle. We would go back to, like, in about 3 or 4 years, we would go back to the farmhouse that we made our rounds 3 or 4 years prior and ask if they would want to buy a basket from her. And she'd act like, "Hi, I'm Gladys Sands. I make baskets, and I sold you a basket about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was wondering if you'd like to buy another basket from me." A nice farm lady would say, "Well, no, Gladys, we still have the one that you sold us before, and we just love it. And no, I'm sorry, we don't need an egg basket today, but we're glad to see you're doing well, and stop by and see us again." So her repeat business wasn't good at all, because her baskets never gave out. They never gave out.
My dad thought I did pretty good for being a whatever kind of kid I must have been. He was quite a guy, though. He was most decorated man from the Southwest Pacific there, where they had, when New Guinea started. He was quite a fellow. He liked life a lot. He liked the woods. I'm glad he showed me what was going on, even if I didn't know I was learning at the time. He was really funny. Well, my ma didn't really think he was that funny because I guess she probably heard all of his material. But man, when there was a new group around, he was really funny. He spent a lot of time with the wife and kids and all of us, and he seen that we were into the baskets and the wood and such. He taught everything he knows to us, you know. I mean, all the designs that he had kept in his head. When he taught them to the wife, she just wrote everything down like a recipe book. It came out all right.
It just feels good to just continue on what's been done just for years and years by all of our people before us. I always feel their presence when we're working wood, or when I'm making a basket, or I make one that might even be slightly as good quality as Ed's. I can feel him there looking at me and saying, good job. Or when I see my granddaughter making a basket, I can see him looking down and the happiness that must be in him to see this little 7-year-old girl doing the same things he did, you know?
And we're done.
Ninda ken mungit ebnats chiget. Studying him, the one who takes away the usefulness.
In the West Michigan woods, the effect of the encroaching beetle has yet to be felt. Back on Walpole Island, the devastation is unavoidable. Here, in addition to destroying the black ash trees, the borer's appetite even includes pumpkin ash. According to Keenan Johnson, the pumpkin ash is one of the rarest species in the ash family. When Johnson last visited this isolated grove 3 years ago, the trees were healthy, borer-free, and he thought safe.
They've never seen any ash trees this big before. That's an ash there too. That's close to a 100-foot tree, and that's an ash. What's typical of pumpkin ash is you have long exposed root systems. You have the bottoms tend to be real robust, but if you look at the root exposure, you see how far I am from the base of the tree. And they said that's really common and real typical of pumpkin ash. So there was a few of them back there that was just the same fashion. If you're not careful where you're walking, you'll fall over. Generally, it's rare in North America. So there's not a whole lot. There's just isolated populations. This is one of the few populations in the province of Ontario. And this tree's probably 130 years old. You see our evidence, we were here. So this is back in from 2003, 2004. And we didn't have any dead trees. We didn't have any ash borer finds out here. And since that time, the trees succumbed to it. And same with all those ones back there. That one's gone. These ones are gone. Yeah, this will be ash borer damage here. And these trees, I would say, have been dead at least a year or two, because there's no leaves, no evidence. You don't see nothing caught in the branches up top. This damage you see like this is all woodpecker damage.
Oh, really?
Woodpeckers are feeding on the ash borer. This is just unreal though. I mean, that one's gone. That one's gone. But we were hoping that the isolation of this bush, because it's surrounded by farm field, that we were hoping that ash borer wouldn't make it here. But it's kind of saying a lot. I mean, there's probably such a heavy population on the island. You know, all those trees are infested, and they start expanding, and now they've moved into the pumpkin ash. I don't know. You look at this is just a young tree, it's dead already. You see all the epicormic shoots coming up out of this one? You can still see our scrapes on here. We didn't find anything. But this tree faced a couple of challenges. One is you look at, if you just imagine if it was summertime, what the crown would look like, because it's so high up there. This tree barely got any light. So, I mean, it was on an uphill battle already, and then on top of that, ash borer comes in, and it just never made it. It was just amazing to look at this forest and see it's all gone. It looks like this tree was putting up a pretty good battle too. Look at all the epicormic shoots. There's still some leaves on the bottom, and you see shoots all the way up. This tree's gone. Gone. Gone.
Gdul McQuendana one Juebuk. We think about what is going to happen.
There has to be an opportunity for Mother Nature to catch up to emerald ash borer, whether it's a mite or a virus that comes about and that goes after the ash borer. We need some time to let that process occur. As populations spike, Mother Nature always responds in some way. We were dealing with gypsy moth back in the mid-1990s, and we seen a spike population. What the elders have said is that let Mother Nature take its course. And what had happened after the peak of the population, a virus broke out, and it occurred across our forest and our community. And we've seen that population go down next to zero within 2 years following that occurrence. Gypsy moth could be seen by the millions that were just dead and hanging from the trees. So what we learned from that was that when Mother Nature is given that opportunity, and that we let it play its role out, then to me that's a better results rather than applying chemicals. I think the important thing is that this tree is not wasted, that it's going to go back into the natural environment and make way for future trees and plants. So it does have a value. For a short period of time, this will be home for other bugs, other animals. So it's not a total loss, and I think it's important that we don't look at it just as a loss of money. But it's just too bad the ash borer got to it first. I think if we maintain those principles and those values, our environment will be there for us. We just have to understand that, keep that belief strong in our hearts, and then it's something we don't look at it as for our personal use today, but we look at it for use of our children, our great-grandchildren, and our future generations to come. And to me, I think that as long as we follow those sort of values, You know, there's a rarity that we would ever do wrong.
I think we're doing a good job of keeping stuff alive and doing what our parents made, but I don't know whether we need to probably cross over right now and figure out what the customer wants, enlarge our tradition. And maybe it's more necessary than ever because the tree, in fact, is decreasing, our access to these trees.
I hope that my little folks, all my little people will be able to go out in the woods. I hope that they go to the same place I do, and I hope that the trees will always be there. It's a possibility they won't because of those bugs.
The emerald ash borer has the capacity to just wipe out everything that we do. I'm hoping that it will be like the Dutch elm disease. There's more elm around now, and that it won't reach all of the ash trees. Where we go, we haven't seen any signs of it yet, but I know that it's all around. And I'm hoping that it will die off or the trees will become immune so our kids and their kids will all be able to keep this tradition up, because it's important for how it keeps us together as a family. And I just don't want to see that all wiped out by a bug.
I have this outlook about being a basket maker and being around basket people all of my life, that it's kind of like a special task to protect that and to make sure, to ensure that those teachings are carried on by the younger generation coming up.
Behind that one.
The corn knows what it's supposed to do. The black ash tree knows what it does. But humans are the only ones who kind of freak out. And they just complicate life by getting off the simple path of work and live a good life.
Basketry kind of got pushed to the side for a couple of years, and I had told my wife maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I says, you know, I can remember making baskets when I was a kid, and she says, well, why don't you get started again with that? And I kind of feel good about that. We're kind of reviving an old custom that we had years ago with a lot of effort, and we started making baskets, and we're going to start up again. We're going to keep that going for as long as possible.
They've got to recognize the best log there, you know, the best one, and in the area to choose the best one. That's a knack. And then to pound it is another knack. To make the handles with the mokchig and the draw knife is another knack. Every step of the way, it seems like, you know, you've got to, like if you had a big family, there'd be those you'd identify that would do things.
Oh, it has nice grains on it. Okay, now all we need is some direction home. Just hope that they'll always make baskets. And I hope my family's always gonna do this. I'm sure they will. The bug is just a bug. Well, that went pretty smooth.
There was a man whose name was Black Elk. And Black Elk was really respected by the Indians, loved. This man was just loved and cherished. When they had a problem, they'd go to Black Elk because he would know what to do. When they needed something, they'd go to Black Elk. He would know what to do. But like anybody, Black Elk got older. And as time goes on, he gets closer to death and they have a meeting. And so he said, what I want to have is, I want to have my ashes scattered in each of your communities. And by doing that, I'll be always there with you. I'll be there to answer your questions. I'll be there to take care of you. When you need something, I'll be there. Black Elk dies. They have his funeral in a traditional way, and his ashes are scattered. Times got so hard, they said, you know, if only Black Elk was here, he'd be able to tell us how to get out of this mess. We're so poor, we don't know exactly what we can do. How can we even talk to him? There were some things he said before he died. He'd always be here. Now, what were those things? He said we could always find him. He said you could find him if you look for where the birds don't nest. You'll find me where your feet are wet. You'll find me where the trees don't blow in the wind. And really what he had done is he had turned himself into the seeds of this black ash, because the black ash, there's no crotches in the tree and the birds don't nest in them. They're usually growing in damp soil so that your feet are wet where you find these. And there's hardly any branches so they don't blow in the wind. And when they found those, they began to remake the baskets again. And once they began to remake these baskets again, they had a way to make a little bit of money to make ends meet, to carry the things that they grew. And it's an appreciation all over.
We stand strong.
Even when my dad came, we all thought it was great to come out into the woods, different woods, and look for a certain kind of tree, and that he was going to make baskets out of it, and everybody was kind of excited because he'd be excited about how good of a tree it was. We didn't get excited about the tree, we'd get excited about him being excited. It just kind of spreads around when you're happy like that, and makes other people happy. But if you do the same thing with your little folks, they'll probably grow up like you did, but without the bad qualities, hopefully. So you just kind of keep it a family thing like we do. It's always been a family thing. Our little folks could weave up since they were little folks, and our grandkids are learning how to weave up now. And it's just a family project it's worthwhile. A lot of benefits out of it.
Black ash basketry is not the first tradition the Anishinaabe have faced losing. Through generations, we have weathered many seasons of change. As we look to the future, we remember the simple path that was shown by those who have come before us. It is their resilience that makes our spirit strong.
The baskets that I'm fortunate enough to have for my mother, I still feel close to her because I'm surrounded with her life yet. And this basket still has her spirit and the original tree's spirit, and now they're both in the basket together, combined to give life. The tree still lives.
I feel really good. I know because of the emerald ash borer that a lot of the ash trees are going to go away, and doing this is really preserving it and showing people that it's really an amazing thing.
It was a really amazing feeling to actually be able to weave the basket.
It was really cool to see how all the things lead to a beautiful ash basket. It was really cool and fun.
Keep getting on others and not saying, min walking on with them wet mom, keep imagining Miss Meadows.
They're an amazing family. I can't believe we got to work with them. Everybody works as a team and works together.
The